On Rome's Ciampino airfield, 970 miles from London, diplomats and air attaches saw the Comet fly in at 490 miles an hour to lower the record to 2 hours and 2 minutes. A proud day for John Cat's Eyes Cunningham, de Havilland's chief test pilot. His achievement proves that jets will enable Britain's future airliners, in mass production by 1953, to do twice the work in almost half the time at 4/5 the cost. Tails up for Britain. With a Comet scheduled by British Overseas Airways Corporation to start the world's first jet passenger air service, Pathé News detailed cameraman Sid Baines to cover the historic trip. This is his story. A few minutes ago, I boarded the Comet, together with other passengers making the trip to Johannesburg. Captain Philip Brentnell took us off with Flying Officer Charlevoix, known to everybody as Charlie Boy, as co-pilot. Up to 40,000 we shot to reach the Comet's best operating height and headed for Rome, our first scheduled stop. Then I began to realize what a wonderful ship this was. Like all newsreel cameramen, flying is no novelty to me, but this was something new. There just wasn't any vibration. Before I'd really settled down, we were flying over the Alps. I think I got a shot of the Matterhorn over there. Skipper Brentnell pointed out Corsica, that large mass of land 70 miles away. At our great flying speed, we were soon on the last few miles to Rome. In a few minutes, Peter Panario was asking permission to land. We were over Rome. There was an hour's refueling break scheduled. I chartered a chariot for a quick look-see. I got as far as the Colosseum, where lions used to eat Christians. They tell me you ought to see it by moonlight. Unfortunately, we were due to take off at 6. As a matter of fact, I only just made it. The jets were warming up. Next stop, Beirut, Syria, then Khartoum, both of which I didn't see as we passed through during the night. But with daylight, we were headed for Uganda in East Africa. Tony Smith, our navvy, was busy. At our height and speed, calculations have to be bang on. We were looking out for Lake Victoria, the largest lake in Africa. There wasn't very much to see through the clouds, but they made a picture. I reckoned we'd done nearly 4,000 miles as I wrote up my log. Lake Victoria, on the northern end of which stands Entebbe, our next stop. Charlie Boy prepared to ease the engines to the skipper's orders, and soon we landed at Entebbe. The weather reminded me of home. One of the things that strikes you on the trip is the change in airport personnel. But the sun was smiling, like some of the local girls, when takeoff time came round, and in perfect weather we left for Livingston. Stewardess Audrey Cartmel assured us everything's fine as she served breakfast. She's always saying, everything's fine. The Comet was riding as smoothly as a bird. But I soon had to get cracking again to catch the first sight of the Victoria Falls on the mighty Zambezi River, wider than Niagara and twice its drop. We were heading in for Livingston Airport now. Johnny Johnson's engines had served us well. This was the last stop before Joburg. There was just time for a quick close-up of the mighty falls. I ignored a couple of gentlemen with the inevitable souvenirs, which I'll bet went all my own work, sir. Can you imagine how Livingston President felt when he discovered these falls? 100 million gallons of water pouring over a 400-foot drop every minute. And then we were off again on the last stage, 600 miles to Joburg. It had been a perfect flight. At our speed, we weren't in the air long enough to get bored. And then suddenly, it sprawled beneath us, a fantastic city built out of the riches of the great Rand gold mines. Those white patches are the waste soil after the gold's extracted. And then we were landing. Britain had made air history again. The world now had its first passenger jet air service. Nearly 7,000 miles by jet. I landed at Joburg full of smiles. Anytime I have to record history in the making again, I'll travel Comet, please. Every time. This is the Comet airliner Yoke Peter, the plane which made aviation history in May 1952, when it pioneered the world's first jet passenger service. On its first flight from London to Johannesburg, it created new records. Its performance thrilled the world and added a new chapter to the shining story of British aircraft and British airmen. Since then, the Comet has blazed new trails, achieving new speeds, setting a new standard. After 12 million miles of flying, and with confidence firmly established in the Comets, it was with dismay that we learned that Yoke Peter, the first of the Comets, had crashed into the Mediterranean off Elba with the loss of 35 lives. Yoke Peter took off from Rome Airport on schedule. A few minutes later, the plane exploded. Ships of the Royal Navy hastened to the spot, but there were no survivors. Immediately, BOAC grounded all Comets and the search began for the wreckage. Thus, the most extensive investigation of its kind ever held was started. Naval units under the command of Admiral Earl Mountbatten gave every assistance to salvage fragments from the seabed. The pieces of the plane were taken back to Britain and slowly Yoke Peter was reconstructed. And although the wreckage was scattered over a wide area, 80% of the plane was pieced together. Meanwhile, other exhaustive tests were being carried out at Farnborough. Another Comet, Yoke Uncle, was to be placed within a giant tank of water and there tested until destroyed. Suitably ballasted, the plane was completely enclosed by the tank, which is about 112 feet long and 16 feet deep. 200,000 gallons of water were poured in. A further 100 gallons were forced into the fuselage to place a strain on it equivalent to that encountered in actual flight. The next step was to test the wings. Automatically controlled jacks moved them up and down. Yoke Uncle endured the test for the equivalent of 15,000 hours flying time. The water tank test finally caused a failure in the fuselage. A point of high stress at the corner of an escape hatch failed, and the rent developed. This, the experts say, is a result of metal fatigue. Similar traces were found on the wreckage of Yoke Peter. BOAC have high hopes that the Comets will soon fly again, and that Comets 2 and 3 will begin their passenger flights across the world. Britain salutes the backroom boys who have spared nothing to solve the Comet mystery, and to put the record-breaking airliner back in the forefront of modern aviation. A new, more powerful version, the Comet 2, was made ready at Hatfield. Test pilot John Cunningham was to attempt a new record on the London to Khartoum run. A Pathé News reporter talked to Cunningham before takeoff.
Would you tell us how much you expect to clip off the existing record, sir?
I hope to halve it. It's just over 14 hours at the moment, and I should do this in something like 6.5 hours.
How long have you actually flown in Comet yourself?
Since July 49, and that's in hours about 1,400.
Would it be correct, sir, to have absolute confidence in the Comet, sir?
Absolutely, completely.
I do think it has its firm place in the future of British aviation.
I'm sure it has. I'm sure it's those people that have had the fortune to travel in the Comet have just had a taste of what future jet transport is.
And good luck, sir, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good.
The Comet landed exactly 6 hours, 24 minutes later, after a journey of 3,080 miles. The aircraft which had heralded the dawn of a new age in aviation had triumphed again, more than halving the previous record. The world's first, the world's best, the Comet will continue in the future, as it has in the past, to maintain the lead for Britain in the skyways of the world.